Hello and welcome to Chapter 2 of CA 121. This is Heather Hines, your course instructor. Here we're going to be talking a little bit more about functions. The last time that we spoke, we talked about the sum function. Today we're going to be talking about a couple more statistical functions like mean, median, and min and max. And then we're going to learn a little bit more about creating tables. So let's get started. The way that these lessons are going to be set up is I'm going to have some terminology that you should know for your quiz. My daughter's laughing in the background. It's really funny. She's watching a cartoon. Anyways, so I'm going to open up the grader and I'm going to complete a few of the tasks from the grader. In addition, I also created a little spreadsheet, a little PowerPoint sheet of some short key commands, and we'll be using these. F1 is your friend, that's the help button. Also, the last time we spoke, we talked about absolute cell reference, which is the F4 button. And here's some additional shortcut keys that'll really help you out and make your life a little bit easier if you learn how to use them correctly. All right, so here's your grader. I put your terminology and your shortcut keys right here so that we can easily reference them. Remember, I'm only going to go over a couple of questions from your grader, not all of them. And this one I'm going to go kind of quickly because it's quite extensive. So I'm going to just hit a couple of them. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to rename our sheets. That is because now instead of one sheet, we have multiple sheets. So to rename a sheet, you can either double click it or you can right click and click rename. I choose to just double click it. This one they want to rename as bulbs, and this one we want to rename as trees. So that's part of step 2, not all of it. Okay, let's go back to bulbs. And then they ask us, hey, add a couple columns to right of column B. So to add columns, remember when you add a column, it always adds before. So I would highlight column C, and I can either highlight just C and click insert. They'll insert one at a time. Or if I want to insert multiples, for example, if I wanted to insert 4 columns, I'd highlight 4 columns and then press insert. In this case, since I want 2 columns, I'd highlight those and press insert, and voila, now I have 2 columns. And now they want me to delimitate the data. So they want me to separate this data. Instead of having this all together, it wants us to say 1, 2, 3, 9 here, and daffodils here. All right. I'm just going to quickly label this item number and then category. All right. So there's several ways that Excel can delimitate the data. This is just one way. Right now we are going to use what's called the flash fill, which is just Excel recognizing, hey, that 1, 2, 3, 9 came from here, and I only want the numbers in this column. So I'm going to make sure I'm on the Home tab. I'm going to go to Fill, Flash Fill, and voila, it realizes, hey, and you want to double check, did it bring down all the first numbers? And same thing with here, daffodils. You go to Fill, Flash Fill, and voila. Make sure that you spell daffodils correctly. That's the most common problem that I see with students, is that they misspell it and then they do flash fill and it says, hey, I don't understand because I don't see daffodils. You have to spell it correctly, okay? So that is how to use flash fill. Make that green so I know that we've already talked about that. All right, so what did we just do? We just talked about step 3, we did step 3 together, and we also did part of step 4. Now it wants us to delete column B. So we're on step 4. So we're going to delete column B. You just highlight the entire column, you press delete. And it wants us to take categories, this column right here, and it wants us to cut and paste it into G. Okay, so this is where I can use this nice little cut paste feature. Oops, I need to add cut, but cut is Control X and then paste is Control V. Now I'm going to delete this, and your spreadsheet should look like that. So what have we done? We have done step 3, and we just did most of step 4. The last thing they want us to do is autofill A through F, so let's go ahead and do that. To auto adjust A through F, you can either just click on the, so auto adjust means, hey, this might be too wide or too narrow, so fit it perfectly to the contents. So it is neither too wide or nor too narrow. Now to auto adjust, you simply double click on the column right there in between the 2 letters. But because I want to auto fit multiple columns, I don't want to auto fit all these individually. I'm lazy, so I can highlight all of them and double click anywhere in between any 2 columns, and I have now auto fit. Alright, the next step says to do the same thing with the trees worksheet. We are going to skip that, so you need to do that on your own. Make the following calculations in the 2 worksheets. So we are going to do these calculations for one worksheet, and then you have to remember to do it for the other worksheet. They say to do it specifically without grouping the sheets. The reason why they do that is because it'll be slightly different formula because we're looking for different things in the 2 worksheets. So, and also if you're not an expert in grouping worksheets and completing calculations, then it's a really good idea to leave them ungrouped and then do some extra practice. Alright, so what do they want? They want us in cell B4 to enter in a function to find the sum of the quantity in stock. So how many items are in stock? Well, here's the quantity in stock, so they want me to add these together. The last time that we talked, in chapter 1, we learned about the sum function. We learned, hey, we can highlight all this and do the quick analysis and do the sum, or we can use the auto sum button. Those 2 features will not work in this case because they only work if we want the answer adjacent. So if we wanted the answer here in cell A43, then we can use those 2 features. But in this case, they want the answer here in B4. So I have to use my equals sum. I have to do the equation manually and then just highlight what I want. I can highlight by clicking and dragging. Remember, when you're clicking and dragging, you need to be in the middle, not on the corner. Otherwise, it will copy paste, and that's not right. Then you close your parentheses. The other way I could have done that is to say equals sum, parentheses, highlight just the first one, then press my shift control down, and it'll select the entire column. Now when I say down, I mean the down arrow. Okay, and there we go. And then they wanted us to use the comma format with no decimals, so you see it automatically inserted 2 decimals, so I'm going to get rid of those. Next it wants the average price, so that are our new statistical functions. Alright, sorry, I quickly added it just now. So once again, we've done flash fill. Now we are going to go to statistical functions right here. So statistical functions, that just means that they have to be numbers, and we're doing something with those numbers. So in this case, we want to find the average price. That the equation for that is equals average. So remember to put in a function, we always put equals. The function that we want, in this case, we want average. And then we want to tell it, we can either type in the numbers or we can just highlight the numbers. Here we want the average price, so here's quantity in stock, we don't want to highlight that. Here's the item number, no. Here's retail price, yes. So I want to highlight these numbers, parentheses, press enter. And now I have the average price. Median price, so I'm going to say, hey, I want the equals median. I'm going to reference these numbers. I can go shift control down, close my parentheses, press enter. Lowest price in Excel, to find the lowest price, the function is called min for minimum. Shift control down, and then highest price equals max. Shift control down, and voila. Now it wants me in cell B10. Oh, I'm sorry. It wanted these to be accounting. Now in B10, it wants me to figure out what are the types of tulips. How many types of tulips are there? So it's not asking us to add the quantity in stock. It's asking us how many types of tulips do we have to sell. So in this case, what would you do if you were doing this manually and say, okay, there's one type of tulip. There's another type of tulip. That's the golden stick tulip. That's 3. This is a 3rd type of tulip, marine. 4th type, purple flag. And a 5th type, passionate. Okay, now if I had a lot of, that was easy for this amount of data because it's only a few cells. But what if I had 1,000 or 2,000 of these? I could say, hey, Excel, I want you to count if you see tulips. So count means it's counting how many times it sees it, the frequency. So count means how many, and it's only counting numbers. So the default for just the count feature is to count numbers. Now if we use count if, it can look for words as well. So here I'm going to say, hey, count, and then I'm going to put a stipulation. So an if function says, I'm making you look for a specific thing. I want you to count if you see something. All right, so I'm saying, hey, look here in the category, and I want you to say, count if. That's the criteria. So the range is where you want it to look. The criteria is what you want it to look for. In this case, we want it to look for tulips. My bad. So tulips, you can. There's 2 ways to show it what you want. You can either look for it and highlight it, or you can type it out. But in this case, whenever it's a word, you have to put quotations, and I would say tulips. Whenever you type it out, you have to be very careful to spell it correctly. And we know that the answer is 5, so we could have gone 5 by that, or we could have highlighted the word tulips. Alrighty, so remember that we're only doing it, you have to do everything that we're doing on both worksheets. So we've completed these kind of, so maybe I'll highlight these in like another color. We've completed them partially. You have to do them in the other worksheet. Then it says, hey, in cell G14, type stock level. All right, so basically they're saying, hey, we're gonna now create another column called stock level. And in cell G15, we're going to create an if function. So it's saying, hey, I want to look at stock level, and I want to say, hey, if this is less than 75, then I need to order some more stock. If it's greater than 75, then I'm okay. So again, now we're going to dive into the if function. An if function is a logical test with a true or false. So I'm going to say equals if, parentheses. Now I'm going to give it the logical test. I want it to look here, and I want it to see if it's less than 75. So if that's less than 75, so that answer is going to be either true or false. And now I can tell it what I want it to say for true and false. So if it's true, if that's less than 75, then I need to order. Since I'm typing it in a word, I need quotations, and I'm going to put the word order. Anytime you want it to re-input with a word, you need quotations. Otherwise, it thinks you're trying to put in a function. Comma, to get to, now you see how it's highlighted for false? Now I'm trying to give it the false value. So in between each piece, I'm going to put commas. And I like how you see this little thing pops up. It tells me, okay, what do I need to put in? So if false, I'm going to want it to press, press enter. If it's false, I want it to say okay. And again, because it's a word, I put in quotations, close parentheses, press enter, and there you go. And remember the last time we learned about autofill, we can take this little autofill handle, pull it all the way down. And just double check that it makes sense. Okay, so if it's less than 75, you need to say order. Less than 75, it needs to say order. Greater than 75, my stock level is okay. We just finished step 8. And remember, you have to do the same thing for trees, but instead of, okay, and now we're going to look at conditional formatting. So conditional means if, it's kind of like an if function. And then formatting means you're going to change how it looks, the color, the font, something of that nature. So it says, hey, I want you to look at column G and I want you to apply conditional formatting. We're going to go to highlight cells, text that contains, because we're looking at text. And it says, hey, for the text that contains, sorry, I forgot what it said, order, I want you to apply the bold italic font with no fill color. So that's none of these, so we're going to go to custom format. And we're just going to say bold italic. For the fill, we're going to make sure it says none. And we're done with that. Next it says, hey, look at column A, and I want you to apply a gradient fill, meaning what it wants us to do is to insert bars that show me the relative value of the data compared to other ones. So I'm going to go to conditional formatting, data bars. It wants the blue one. Okay. So now it says, hey, you can visually see, hey, this one is low stock, this one is high stock. We just finished step 9, but only for bulbs. You have to do it for trees as well. Now it wants us to do step 10, which is to convert this to a data table. Alright, so I'm going to click anywhere here, or I can highlight it, either one. And we're going to insert table. It's going to auto-sense, hey, I think you want this area. I'm going to say, yes, I do. And my data does have tables, does have headers, I'm sorry. Right? It says quantity, stock, item number. If those weren't there, then I would say, no, it doesn't have headers. There you go. We just converted it into a data table. It says it wants the light orange style 20, but for mine, I don't have a light orange style 20. I have a light orange style 17, so I'm going to use that because it says that if I don't have that, then to just use any of them. That's fine. Then it says to insert the total row. So to insert a total row, if you're outside of the data table, you can't do it. But if you're inside, now you have extra features, an extra tab called the design tab, and you see this band said total row. I just click on that and now I have a total row feature. And it wants me to filter the category for tulips. So I'm going to go to category. I'm going to say, hey, I just want tulips. So I'm going to deselect all and just select tulips. And it wants me to figure out how many total tulips are there in stock. So right here, I'm going to go to my total row. I have a little pull down feature. And I'm going to go to sum because that's how you figure out total. Alright, and it wants me to record the result in cell B11. There's actually another function that I could have used there. I actually could have used the count, the sum if, but they wanted me to do it this way. And then I am going to go ahead, get rid of my filter. So I'm going to clear the filter. Notice how this all looks weird on the right side. All it did when I filtered it, it didn't delete the data, it just hid the data. Alright, so I'm going to clear the filter. Let's go back to my instructions. So what have we done? We did step 10. And now it says clear the filter. We just did that. Sort the table for item number, column from smallest to largest. So item number, I'm going to just, so what's nice when you make it into a table is now you have these headers where you can easily filter and sort. So I'm going to sort from smallest to largest. And then remove the total row. So to get rid of the total row, I click anywhere in the table. I go to the table design tools and get rid of total row. And then it wants me to, when I print this, so for example, let's look at the print preview real quick, which is this third one down here at the bottom, the page break. If I was to print this right now, it would be multiple pages. So it says, hey, when I print it out, I want these headers to always show up. So how do you do that? Well, you go to the page layout. You can click print titles, or you can do the expander, either one. Here they want you to, for the titles. Sorry, my daughter is sick. Right behind me, 1 second. All right, and it says, hey, I want you to repeat row 14 in each cell. So it says rows to repeat. I'm going to click there, and I'm going to click on the whole 14. So I clicked on the entire row by clicking the number 14, and it automatically inserted it there. I'm going to press OK. So we are done with that one right there. Alright, so basically 12 and 13 says do the same thing, but for the trees worksheet, you can do that on your own. Next, we're going to skip to step 14, where it says group the two worksheets, and we're going to do some page setup things with that. Alright, so I'm going to group them. How do I do that? I can go ahead and highlight one, and then press the control button and highlight the other. Or I could right click and do a grouping that way. So right now they're grouped. I can ungroup them by right clicking and clicking ungroup. Right. So again, I group them by pressing the control button, make sure they're both underlined in green. And that makes it so that what I do in one worksheet, it will happen in the other worksheet as well. So it wants us to merge and center A1 through G1. I'm going to go to the Home tab, Merge and Center, and it wants us to apply the title cell style. There we go. And then it wants me to merge and center A2 through G2 and apply the heading 1 cell style. Then it wants me to autofit column A, so I'm going to go to column A and I'm going to autofit it. There we go. Why did I have to autofit column A? Well, maybe I've done some things to column A because I remember we did autofit earlier, but autofit only works for right then and there. It's kind of like a snapshot autofit. It doesn't autofit as you go along. So if you've changed data in that column, then you might have to re-autofit it again. So we just completed step 3. And we actually did that for both worksheets, so I'll put that in yellow. Now double check the other worksheet. Does it have the same features? Yes. Great. That's what grouping does. It allows us to format multiple sheets at the same time. Now I'm going to, now that I double checked, I'm going to regroup them again. So I just highlight them and press the control button. Now it says that it wants us to change some of the page layout features. So I'm going to go to page layout. Since I'm doing multiple page layout items, I'm going to use the expander. Alright, so it wants us to center the worksheets horizontally. So to do that, you go to margins. Down here it says center on page. We say horizontally. Change the orientation to landscape. So I'm going to go to page, landscape. And then it wants us to insert a custom footer with a file name in the left-hand section. So I go to sheet header footer, custom footer. Oops, I'm sorry. Custom footer. In the left-hand side, I put insert file name. Press OK. And then I'm going to click on print preview. And it says in the print preview, you see how everything is kind of not on one page. I'm going to say fit everything to one page. So for scaling, I could fit sheet on one page. And then to get out of here, I could press escape. I'm sorry, I just reread the directions. It says fit all columns on one page. So I'm sorry, I picked the wrong one. So I need to go down one more, fit all columns on one page. And then to get out of here, I can press either the back button or the escape button. Make sure to save periodically. Alright, and so we just finished step 15. I'm going to stop here since this is already 24 minutes long. And if you need help on the rest of the steps, you can see part 2 of this video.